One more for the show. It's read. Ooh, it's cold. Snowed just a little bit. Light blanket snow. Left my heater going, because it's cold. All right. Conflict. All right, take these off. I can hear better. I'll read better too. Chapter 20, Conflict. At that precise moment, however, Finn was not exactly in great jeopardy. He was lying on the grassy slope of the soft mound below the house. He was gazing up to the sky, to the clouds drifting lazily above, and looking quite at ease. Though still bearded, he was at least washed now, wearing a clean white tunic and a brown wool cloak. Beside him was the girl called Murin. She lay on her side so that she might keep her gaze upon him as he spoke. And for those long centuries, the men of Dia came 3 times in every year to give battle to us on the green here. It's from those battles that all these dolems have come, marking the graves of the slain and the great Ogums, marking the dying place of the great champions. She gestured out at the broad plain in its plentiful scattering of monuments. Oh, it's terrible and bloody battles, and they've had here. Aye. She sorrowfully went on. And all the hundreds of good warriors slain and our own people worn away. But it was great slaughter my family did, refusing to submit even after my father was killed all those years ago. Then one day, Lear of Sid Fiel Knockade, the great bullying chieftain you've met, came to us. He told us that many Daytonan leaders, ones that Lear, of course, considered weak, had declared themselves weary of the long war. It no longer made sense to host the Sidhe and waste the Daytonan lives over our single clan. Now so much reduced, but let's see, Bod Durg, he that is the great high king. So that's Bod Durg, BOBDDERG, high king of all the Daytonan, had argued that the pride. So the high king of all the Daytonan had argued that the pride of the Daytonans was at stake. We couldn't be allowed to succeed in our rebellion. Finally, he agreed to seek a way of bringing us to heel that would risk no more lives, at least of his own people. At least of his own people. Lear and his brutal clan were chosen to carry out this new plan. They've long had the task of enforcing Daytonan law among the Sids. Few having the strength or courage to dare to challenge him. Lear said that he had accepted his task eagerly. He bragged to us that within a year he'd force us to submit. It was from that day his bird began coming nightly to harass us, to wear us down and to force us to realize we'd never win. And though my brothers are too proud ever to admit it, the plan was near to succeeding when you came, and what caused this conflict? Finn asked her. And what caused this conflict? Finn asked her, rolling onto his side toward her. The others wanted us to join them in the Sids, she said. After the great battle for Ireland, these names, he said in puzzlement, shaking his head, Bod Durg and the Sids and the Tuatha De Danann. I have a feeling I should know them, but there is so much I should remember. I'm sorry, she said, giving him a pitying look and shifting closer to place a hand upon his. I wish we could help you, but we've none of the magic that you do, that might do some healing for you. We have none of the magic that might do some healing for you. She shrugged and smiled. I thank you for your wish to help, he told her, earnestly. But you know, it's really not such a discomfort to me. It's very strange. I should be anxious about my memories and who I am. Yet, these past days I've felt, well, I suppose I felt free somehow. It's as if I've found a relief from some burden. I've nothing to think of but myself. He met her eyes searchingly. Do you understand? I'm not certain that I do, to tell the truth, she said, adding boldly, if you're content with us, I'll not say it makes me unhappy. That I'm most glad to hear, he told her with a grin. Still, I'm curious to know more of you and your people. Please, would you tell me? All right, she said. It's a very old story, of course. And I'm certain that by now every mortal bard of Ireland has used his skills to build it into a most marvelous yarn. But at the heart of all the embellishing lies a very simple tale. Finn settled back with his head upon her lap. Tell on, he said. I'm certain no bard could do it any better than yourself. You're a most forward young man and a terrible liar, she said, but with obvious pleasure and making no effort to move him. In fact, one of her hands began to lightly stroke his temple as she went on. You see, Many hundreds of years ago, the Tuatha De Danann ruled Ireland, living upon its surface when the mortal races invaded. There was a great war between the two forces for mastery of the land. Finally, it was the De Dananns who gave up the fight. They might have left Ireland, returning to the land of promise in the Western Sea. Instead, they chose to stay in the land they loved, withdrawing beneath its surface into the hidden places, the underground palaces called the Sids. To the mortals then became the She, the folk of the Sids. It was Manannán mac Lir, the god of the sea, who understands all enchantments, who helped them. He found them places in the most beautiful glens and hills where they would be safest from their enemies. He gave them the power to create the great caverns that would become their homes, and the magic to protect the Sids with hidden walls. Finn said in puzzlement, "Hidden walls? You know of them yourself," she told him. "If any mortal tries to come unbidden to our mound, the protecting barrier stops them by sending them another way. It's called a stray." "Of course," Finn exclaimed with dawning understanding. "It's nearly drove me mad." But she went on. "The most important thing Manannán did for the De Dananns was to make the Feast of Age for them. The Feast of Age for them. What they drank at it was the ale of let's see, Goibnu. Goibnu. Okay. That's Goibnu. You want to look up pronunciation for Gaelic. Irish Gaelic. Okay. Oh, unless he's using just regular. I doubt that, but I don't know. The smith which kept whoever tasted it from sickness. The Goibnu, okay. So the ale of Goibnu gave you health. So that means that the dark druid and the sorceress or whatever, they created like an artificial mead, but it does the opposite. It mutates you. Or maybe, I don't know, poisoned the well, if you get what I'm saying. Okay. Goibnu the smith, which kept whoever tasted it from sickness and from death and from growing old. And what they ate was Manannán's own swine, which could be killed and eaten one day, but still be alive and fit for eating the next, and so on forever. After a time, the kings of the many Sids decided that it would be better to have one leader over them all than to be scattered through the whole of Ireland. It was the Dagda who was their great champion that they wanted, but he'd have no part of it, nor would his son Angus Og, who wished to wander the world adventuring. So it fell upon his eldest son, Bodurg, who agreed to take the kingship for his father's sake. Now tell me, how is it that your own family lives in a home above the ground and is at war with the rest of your people? Finn requested. So that's polite. It's a simple enough thing. When the other De Danann leaders chose to withdraw, my father refused. He said that the surface was his and no power could force him to retreat into some dank hole beneath the earth. That sounds like Dawn speaking, Finn told her with a grin. She laughed at that. Ha ha ha. Yes, they're much of a kind, proud and stubborn and a bit foolish too. But with the whole of the She against him, father brought his clan here to set up our own home. They've been trying to make us give it up ever since. And you will not? We love Ireland, I love the surface world, to feel the wind and rain, to see the sky, to hear thunder and calls of birds. She looked up, basking in the sun, breathing in the freshness of the day, to feel, hold on, gotta do this with good feeling. To feel all that is worth the great price we have paid. She paused, her gaze becoming wistful. If we could only be free, she finally went on, free to live in this world as mortals do, to travel it, to meet others. She turned and fixed a gaze on him. I have no one here, she said. In a way, I'm still a prisoner. At these words, he frowned suddenly and sat up. His gaze went far away. Keep in mind, this could be the Druidess, but most likely is. What's wrong? Oh, wait. What's wrong? She asked him anxiously. I didn't say something to disturb you. I'm not certain, he answered. He shook his head, saying in a befuddled way, it's just that when you were speaking, I saw an image of someone else, a woman. Yes, fair, very young, most beautiful. I know I've seen her before. It's like the other visions I've had. I wish I knew what they mean. She turned away from him, her expression gloom. I think I know what this one means, she said. Likely you have a woman, maybe a wife, waiting somewhere. And why not, with such a man as you are? You think that I could forget a wife? He asked. Then he smiled. He lifted a hand to touch her chin, lightly turning her head to him. I don't believe that at all. If she were even half so comely as yourself, I could never forget her. This brought a return of her own smile. Well, it's certain that, wife or not, you were quite one with the ladies. You are quite one with the ladies, wherever you came from. Wherever I came from? He echoed musingly. He moved to sit close beside her, looking out across the countryside. You know, I can't even say whether I'm of these mortals you spoke about, or of the she. I've no feeling at all about it myself, she said. With most, you can feel it, almost sense an aura of mortal or she. But with you, there's nothing. Are the two still great enemies? Not so much as weary sharers of the land, though some of the she still hold a great hatred of mortals, as I suppose you could expect. But that's neither your problem nor our own right now. Our own right now. Not right being as in right now. For you, it's all as new as if you were a babe. Why, you know, she said, looking to him with an expression of sudden realization. You haven't even a name. I can't go on calling you the stranger as my brother does. Well, a man mustn't name himself, he said. I give that honor to you, fine lady. She nodded, accepting the honor most soberly, and considered. I know, she said at last. Well, you, Anne Luan, great warrior, that fits you right enough. It's far too grand for the scuffy likes of me, he protested modestly. Still, it's my choice, and I'll use it, she said determinedly. She rose onto her knees and faced him, putting a hand on each shoulder. And so, she intoned, with great solemnity, I hereby name you Anne Luan. That's Anluan. And At this, she leaned toward him, lips parted, eyes bright, and he moved toward her, an arm lifting to encircle her waist as he joined in the kiss. Malakrod and Fyodorsh gazed down upon the scene through the curved walls of the glass sphere. The dark druid's expression was sardonic, while the seer's gaze was a brooding one. So Finn has managed to win himself a place in the family of Midhir, Fear said. Well, there's your answer. More than that, it would seem, Malakrod put in irritably. Huh? Now, my dear, he told her with a sarcastic smile, you mustn't be vexed because this girl has the wiles greater than your own. The shamelessness, wench. The druid is shot back, wow, fixing a blazing look upon Murin. If I could find some way to destroy them both, you'll do nothing, he said sharply. Finn has assured his own destruction by joining with these rebels. He lifted his gaze from the couple of the scene beyond. In fact, I believe that his end is coming upon him now. From their vantage point suspended just above the mound, they could see the entire plain. A large company was now visible, moving across it, directly toward them. The dark druid settled himself more comfortably into the cushions and fixed an avid gaze upon this force. This, he said gleefully, will be most enjoyable to watch. Meantime, just below, dawn had appeared on the hillside above Finn and Murin. As their attentions were still fully absorbed elsewhere, he coughed discreetly. Instantly, they pulled apart, looking up toward him and flushing in embarrassment. Sorry to be disturbing you, he said in a clearly disapproving way. Sorry to be disturbing you, he said in a clearly disapproving way. But they're just coming now. The two rose hurriedly and went up the hill with him, circling the house to the doorway. From here, they could see the force advancing across the plain. Some 70 men, all large, all heavily armored. Lear stalking along at their head. The sons of Midhir were mostly out of the house, already donning their gear. Someone had handed Finn his spear and shield that had been donated to him earlier. We will go down and meet them on the plain, said Don. Are you still with us, stranger? I am, said Finn. The band of the sons of Midhir went down the slope, striding proudly to the base. Here, they pulled up, waiting for the approaching clan to reach them. A spear's throw away, Lear halted his warriors, glaring across it at a tiny band facing him so defiantly. All right, Don, he shouted to them. This is your final chance. Will you surrender to the will of the Daedanans and give the clown to me? That I will not, Lear, Don said grandly. Then we will end things, the other replied. I've looked forward to doing this for a long time, and the Daedanans will be pleased that we finished this forever. Better than yourself have said. They would, better men than yourself had said they would do that, Don said. Come ahead now, Lear, for we've had enough of your blustering talk. Warriors of Lear's clan began to advance, rumbling ominously forward, like a moving herd, as if they would simply trample anything that might come in their way. The sons of Midhir, so few and so frail in contrast, steeled themselves, standing up boldly, weapons raised. "Be ready, brothers," Don ordered. "Choose out their strongest champions first." He looked at Finn. "And you, nameless one, I hope your last victory was no accident." "So do I," Finn answered with a grin. And then the full force of Lear's clan struck like a wave coming upon twigs stuck in the sand. The torrent of men crashed in, and the battle joined. Once more the sharp clattering of arms sounded across the plain, echoing amongst the monuments scattered like bleached bones. The skull rolled over, plopping down upright to stare out with blank eye sockets. The butt of the spear pole poked down into the wreckage again, levering up a length of charred timber that fell back, sending up a cloud of soft gray ash and revealing a jumble of other bones. Cowlight Macronin pulled back his spear and crouched to examine the remains curiously. "What was it?" he asked with some repulsion. Knut Royal knelt by him, picking up the skull to examine it. It was partially crushed and badly charred, but still intact enough. It was vaguely human, but far from completely so. Its brows low, its jaws long and set with tearing fangs. "It's some half creature," the harper said. "Maybe wolf and man, I'm not certain. But I do know that it's the hideous kind of monster the Dark Druid would create." Cowlight rose and turned slowly to survey the rest of the remains. The blackened circle of them filled the little hollow in the woods, but there was very little left. The effect of a fire and a structure of wattle and thatch was quite thorough. A few burned remnants of furniture and beams, some metal objects half buried in the ash. The circle of the hearthstones were nearly all that remained as evidence of what had been. "Well, I've found no other signs of the dead," Cowlight said, poking his spear haft into another mound of wreckage. "If Finn was brought here alive, at least he didn't perish in the fire." "No. And the fire could be a sign that he wasn't in their power." "You mean maybe he set it himself?" Cowlight asked hopefully. "Maybe he escaped." "Let's not move too quickly," the harper cautioned. "All we really know for certain is that the Puka's track leads here, but it could very well be that he was carried on it here to be hidden away." Glanced round, evaluating. "Before the fire burned back all the brush, this place must have been nicely concealed here." "But why hide him here?" Cowlight asked. "And what happened? Keep searching," Knut Royal advised. Both men took up their looking again, probing the ashes, turning over wreckage until the little nut paused to look at something more closely. "This may give us some answers," he said. "Come look at this." Cowlight moved to him and watched as the harper lifted a round object from a pile of scorched cloth. He wiped a coating of ash from it and held it up. The piece was warped by the intense heat and badly discolored, but it could still be recognized as a finely wrought brooch, decorated with enameling and curling, intricate designs. "A cloak pin." "A cloak pin," Cowlight said, "and a rich piece." "A woman's cloak pin," Knut Royal said. corrected him with a smile. A woman, Cowlight repeated, shaking his head. I might have known that there'd be one in this. Not so. I don't think so. And the other said, examining the piece critically. Such a piece as this was done by the she craftsman, and for a banshee of some rank, a druidess perhaps, at a guess. Some friend of our Fyr Dorsh, the dark druid, used to lure Finn into a trap, maybe, Cowlight put in. That might be the one thing that could fool our fool, unless he came here willingly, the harper said. How did he leave here? That's what I'd like to know, Cowlight replied. The excited baying of the two hounds came then, almost as an answer to his question. The men looked up to see the pair bounding through the trees toward them. What is it, lads? Cowlight asked, moving to meet them. Have you found something? They capered madly, charging back and forth before him, then turning to trot back the way they had come, a short distance. Here they stopped, looking back, clearly waiting for him to follow, tails wagging wildly, tongues hanging out. Is it a trail? He asked. Both animals gave vigorous nods. What kind of trail? Both animals leaped and turned, barking ecstatically. Cowlight looked to Knud Royal, who gave him a broad grin. It's Finn! He translated. And that ends that chapter. Next chapter is The Physician. It was a short chapter. This is cool. It gets into some folk medicine, maybe. Okay. This is called The Physician, chapter 21. A score of dead men were scattered about the field, standing stones below the hill. Some stained the monuments to earlier dead with their own fresh blood. Warriors of the clan of the chieftain Lear were at the task of carting the bodies away. Made a dismal scene, all painted in the lurid red gold of a setting sun that struck across the plain. Okay, and that's where I'm going to stop. But a little intro. Okay, so chapter 21, baby. Yeah. Excellent. To be cool under pressure. So much pressure, you'd be hotter than a diamond. Say, infinite love is hotter than a diamond. And I say, folks, so this infinite love stay. This infinite love stay. Oh, long away, they say. Battle raging on, they say. But I know, heroes gonna rise. Oh, see the root down. me to remember who I am. Well, my friends, will you help me to remember who I am? This is rough on the way, you know. Ragged and beaten from the road, but keep on going on, stand on, stand my ground to stay. Folks, soul memory, folks, soul memory, remedy I owe. His grandfather, oh, his grandmother, you know she's well. Tree flame and where you said, easy on the breeze, come on home. Oh, one day, I'll get his wife and child on back to stay. Freedom say, yeah, rough on a desert day, through the woodland be a desert for love, you know, be a desert for love to stand. In the woodland be need some medicine from the woodland said, need some folk remedy. Gonna set him right this time round, and stripped down to the ground, had it all taken away. Gonna show my a king, it's not because you dress in the fanciest clothes, you know. Does a leader make you better, and you know it's cool hand Luke, cause he's in control. Easy on the breeze, you know. Battle on the way, battle on the way, you know. Easy on the way. Sunrise, sunrise, sunrise to sunset, you know. Grandmother, grandfather on the way. Grandmother in my soul, grandfather deep down, heart's flame in a chamber, heart and soul, you know. You said, you said, you said, you said. circle all around me, circle all around me, circle all around me. What the stone they said. Wood and stone stay. For the light of a warrior, light of the hero, is rising on the stand, I understand. Heart of a warrior is in a woman or man. There's nothing left to stand. And the child's gonna rise and be a hero. Even in the spirit world. Shine on to save, no. Shine on to save. Remember on a destiny. Easy on the way, say. Easy on the way, say. Easy on the way. Shaking like a leaf in the breeze. How do you know? How do you know how to choose? I said, listen to your heart, right? Listen to your heart, right? Folks soul burning ember, deep down, in a chamber, heart and soul. He's oh. Folk soul memory, folk soul memory. Oh. So go around and say, heart's flame, living memory. Oh. To go around.